If you haven't seen my review of the first 2 seasons of The Next Generation, check it out, linked below. Now, without doubt, the 3rd season is when the series truly hit its stride. The writing improved, the quality of the production values increased, there were some visual updates, more comfortable uniforms for the cast, and consistently good stories throughout the year. Michael Piller would eventually become executive producer on the series, and his contribution to the franchise would be significant in the years to come. Ronald D. Moore submitted a successful spec script for the episode The Bonding, and he would eventually be hired as executive story editor. Of course, he would contribute many more times to the franchise in a writing role. The Next Generation's 3rd season would set the tone for the rest of the 24th century era of the franchise, and would set the template for both Deep Space Nine and Voyager to come. There are so many classics in Season 3, culminating with the iconic The Best of Both Worlds cliffhanger, and we're going to run down the highlights of the 3rd season of The Next Generation right after a word from today's sponsor. Raid Shadow Legends has taken over, and gaming will never be the same again. Raid is the first game to bring a true console-level experience to your phone. They've set the bar high, and there's no going back. And now, I want to share with you my top 2 favourite champions from Raid. First is Queen Ava, boss in the campaign, but she's also a heck of a champion if you find her in a shard. She has some nice utility, she applies increased attack buffs on herself, she puts out heal reduction with her default skill, and she can block revive with a pretty strong single target attack. Another is Raglan. Raglan is, without doubt, the best reviver in Raid. She revives a single target, fills their turn meter, and gives them a bit of health. And there's a ton happening in Raid this month. One of the events is Path of Light, and you'll be able to explore 3 branching paths to get the rewards you want the most. On top of that, there's some awesome new champions coming out and a set of skins for the amazing Trunda Guild Mallet. Raid's currently running a special Deliana Chase event where new and existing players can get their hands on the amazing Deliana. All you have to do is log in and play Raid for 7 days between now and July 20th, and you'll get Deliana free. All new players, listen up. Once you're in game, just enter promo code MyDeliana to get 50 XP brews to max your legendary hero Deliana to level 50, as well as a ton of silver. Promo code is available from May 23rd to July 20th. But that's not all. The gifts for new players keep coming. Hit the link in the description box and get a free champion. Vergis, 200,000 silver, 1 XP boost, 1 energy refill, and 1 ancient shard, so you can summon an awesome champion as soon as you get in-game. You will find these rewards here in your inbox for the next 30 days only. Thanks to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. Okay, so welcome back. Few episodes are more quintessential Season 3 than The Survivors. The Enterprise crew respond to a distress call from the planet Delta Rana 4. It's a desolate planet ravaged by war, but they discover a small patch of land with a house on it. A green oasis on an otherwise deserted and uninhabitable world. How odd. Beaming down, they find a lovely home and a charming elderly couple, Kevin and Rashawn Uxbridge. They tell the Enterprise crew that they saw the alien attack that destroyed the planet, but they survived. It seems hard to believe, but somehow they must have. Meantime, a music box in their home seems to be having a devastating impact on Deanna Troi. She can't stop hearing the music in her head, and it's driving her crazy. Dr. Crusher is forced to place her in a medically induced coma. Picard wants to bring Kevin and Rashawn aboard the Enterprise for their safety, but they refuse to leave their home. The Enterprise is attacked several times by a mysterious alien ship and driven from the planet. Each time they return, it appears out of nowhere to drive them away. Picard grows suspicious of this, believing that they are being toyed with. He returns to the planet and tells the Uxbridges the Enterprise will remain in orbit to protect them for as long as they live. Then later, the alien ship destroys their home from orbit. It's exactly as Picard predicted. Picard orders the Enterprise to back off a little bit into a high orbit to conceal their location, and once again they detect the appearance of the Uxbridge home. It's reappeared. They finally have a conversation with Kevin. Turns out he's not human, he's an alien called a Dowd. He fell in love with Rashawn, but the Husanok, an alien race, destroyed the planet. Rashawn was killed. So, he created their home and recreated Rashawn in exact detail. So she's not real. He releases his hold over Deanna Troi's mind, which was designed to prevent her telepathy from discovering his true identity. It's a wonderful story. Who Watches the Watchers is another memorable story. For the first time, we see how the Federation observes more primitive alien races through the use of holographic Federation duck blinds, which would be used once again in Star Trek Insurrection. The crew is observing a group of proto-Vulcans, but it goes wrong when the aliens uncover the Federation landing party and assume that they must be gods. The episode deals with the ramifications of breaching the Prime Directive and interfering with the development of a pre-warp primitive civilization. The Bonding is another powerful and emotional episode about a boy named Jeremy Astor, whose mother, Lieutenant Marla Astor, is killed on an away mission. He blames Worf for his mother's death and tells Captain Picard that he's all alone now. I really love the moment where Picard takes the boy's hand and tells him that on the Starship Enterprise no one is alone, no one. It shows some real progress in Picard's development, having started out really disliking the fact that he has a ship full of children. He has to express a paternal instinct. So some form of energy beam comes from the planet and enters the Enterprise and then takes the form of Jeremy's mother. This recreation of Marla Astor tells him that the away team was mistaken. She didn't die after all. And she tells Jeremy that she will take care of him. And they have to leave together. I love how the actress Susan Powell plays the role, just on the edge of being slightly creepy and almost sinister as the alien doppelganger. And the unnerving piano music really adds to the effect. This version of Marla Astor wants to take Jeremy to live with her on the surface of the planet. The crew may lack an explanation for what's really happening here, but their first priority is to get Jeremy away from this facsimile of his mother. Later, she recreates their home on Earth inside his quarters. As Riker says, she offers him everything. All they can offer him is the cold reality of his mother's death. I wouldn't recommend that you watch this episode if you've recently lost a close loved one, but the episode deals with grief and learning to overcome loss. Booby Trap is an epic story, genuinely very exciting with some great moments of tension and suspense. The Enterprise enters an asteroid field and finds the remains of an ancient warship, the remnants of a battle between two alien races called the Menthars and the Promelians. They explore the craft and find the crew dead at their posts, and they view the captain's log. But when they try to leave, they find the Enterprise's systems are being slowly drained. What they discover is that the Menthars had created a kind of booby trap for their enemies, which drains a ship's power and turns it into radiation. Geordi has to find a solution with the help of a holographic representation of Leah Brahms. She helped to develop the warp drive of the Galaxy-class starships. Geordi even tries to make her more human by incorporating more of her personality profile into the simulation. Later, the character would become a romantic interest for Geordi. There's a great conclusion with Picard taking the helm of the Enterprise to get through the asteroid field. The episode is also praised for its excellent musical score. Deja Q is obviously a Q-centric story, but this time we get to see an entirely new dimension of him, a much deeper exploration of the character. John Delancey is given a lot more to work with, as the character has to do more than just be a trickster, because this time he's lost his powers, and he's been kicked out of the Q continuum. He's human now, although Picard thinks it's just another one of his games. Meantime, there's an imminent disaster about to befall a nearby planet, with a moon about to collide with it, and Picard wants Q to use his powers to stop it from happening. But he can't, of course. There's a nice dynamic between Data and Q in this episode, because of the fact that Q is now reluctantly human, and Data wishes to be human. So they have some interesting moments about this, but the episode is primarily a kind of fish-out-of-water story for Q, where we see him having to learn to deal with everyday human realities like pain, hunger, and sleep. Q really achieves some growth in this story, choosing to commit a noble act of self-sacrifice for the Enterprise crew, given that the aliens in this story harbour a major grudge against him, and Q's presence on the Enterprise is endangering the lives of the Enterprise crew. For this moment of compassion, Q's powers are restored. Without doubt, yesterday's Enterprise is a major highlight of Season 3, right up there with the best of both worlds. The Enterprise C is sent into the future, and in so doing it escapes a battle with the Romulans. Because of this, instead of it being recorded as destroyed while trying to save the Klingon outpost of Narendra 3, the Enterprise C is instead recorded as missing. In the original timeline, their sacrifice was seen as a noble act by the Klingons that resulted in ending the hostilities between the Federation and Klingon Empire. But with the Enterprise C missing, it meant a new timeline was created, and that is where the majority of this story takes place, in a darker, wartime 24th century, and it shows in major configuration changes to the Enterprise. The bridge is different, the lighting is different, the uniforms are more militaristic, the ship is packed with officers, and even Picard's captain's log begins with military log combat date. This is the closest the Next Generation gets to a Mirror Universe episode, and even Tasha Yar, who had died 3 years earlier, she's back. Only Guinan knows that something has changed. With her Elorian intuition, she can feel that the timeline isn't right. This is a very clever and well thought out alternative universe story, and the Tasha Yar plot point wouldn't end here. Her presence and subsequent sacrifice on the Enterprise C would go on to have ramifications later in the series. The Offspring is a very special story. Data creates an offspring named Lal, a female android. Picard is initially very concerned about this, telling Data she should not have been created without his knowledge. Though most of the story explores Lal's social progress and development, with some humorous moments in there, the main conflict is in the form of Admiral Haftel. He wants Lal transferred to a Starfleet facility for study, echoes of the Measure of a Man. But Picard holds firm in defense of Data's rights as a parent. Lal has a sudden emotional moment and goes to Deanna. I have to say, the actress Hallie Todd does an amazing job playing a believable android who's struggling to incorporate the seeming contradiction of inexplicable emotions. Suffice to say, her positronic brain is damaged, and Data does everything he can to save her. Even Admiral Haftel is moved by witnessing Data's determination to save his child. The end scene is a real heartbreaker, with Lal telling Data, "Thank you for my life." Just even thinking about how that line is delivered in the episode kind of chokes me up a little bit. It's as if she kind of died of a broken heart. Sarek marks only the second time in TNG's history where an original series character had been on the show, the first of course being Leonard McCoy in Encounter at Farpoint. This episode gives us Spock's father, Sarek, who boards the Enterprise with his wife Perrin to open trade negotiations with a race known as the Lagarans. The Enterprise is to play host to this conference. But it becomes obvious that all is not too well with this elderly Vulcan. Meantime, crew members seem to be acting extremely hostile towards each other all of a sudden, culminating in a bar brawl in 10 Forward. Sarek's mental and emotional state is deteriorating, and the conference is jeopardized. Long story short, Sarek is undergoing a kind of Vulcan dementia, but it's manifesting telepathically and affecting others, and he's struggling to keep it together himself. Picard agrees to allow Sarek to mind meld with him to transfer Sarek's emotions temporarily so that he can still proceed with the negotiations. Patrick Stewart puts in a masterful performance in an emotional breakdown scene, and it also gives us an insight into Sarek's difficult relationship with his son Spock. Both Patrick Stewart and Mark Lenard deserve heaps of praise for their performances in this episode. The season finale is of course the Best of Both Worlds Part 1, the first cliffhanger on the show, and only the second Borg story ever. I remember watching the final moments of this episode as a kid, and my heart racing at the conclusion. It was one of the best, how the hell are they going to get out of this one, conclusions I'd ever seen on television. Obviously, you know the story is about the Borg assimilating Picard and turning him into Locutus of Borg, turning him against the Federation, and it explores the effect this has on Riker and the crew. The impact of the Best of Both Worlds would be felt for years to come in the franchise, and it would play into the pilot of Deep Space Nine, Emissary, and it would also influence the Federation's future ship designs and weapons development. Picard's knowledge of the Federation means that the Borg make quick work of the fleet at Wolf 359, and this has devastating consequences for Starfleet. Ultimately, Riker has to take on Locutus of Borg, who possesses the knowledge and experience of Riker's mentor and former captain. The showdown is just fantastic, with Riker having to choose to do the previously unthinkable, to see Picard as his enemy, and to fire upon the Borg ship. There are, of course, some honourable mentions in Season 3, including the comedic Hollow Pursuits, which gave us the introduction of Reg Barclay, a recurring character on TNG and Voyager, The Most Toys, where Data is captured by a collector named Kivas Fajo. There's The Defector, where a Romulan seeks refuge on the Enterprise as a defector from the Empire, and Captain's Holiday, where Picard takes some shore leave to the pleasure planet Risa, its first appearance in the franchise, and we're also introduced to the character of Vash, who would appear one more time on The Next Generation, as well as once on Deep Space Nine. The Next Generation's third season is arguably its best and most consistent, but it was at this point that the series had truly established itself and paved the way for the kind of tone, quality, and character-driven stories that would continue with the subsequent TV series in the franchise.